Well, welcome everyone to another Maddy Associates webinar series. We're delighted today to have Blong Xiong, who's as our guest, who was recently appointed by the Biden administration to serve as the State Executive Director of the USDA Farm Service Agency for all of California. That happened back in January of this year. Prior to his appointment, I know many of you know Mr. Xiong. He was most recently the Executive Director of the Asia Business Institute and Resource Center, basically provided assistance and advocacy to small and micro underserved ag producers. Prior to that, he was served 2 terms on the City Council, survived that experience. But he's still doing public service and still trying to help the region. He's been on several boards and commissions over time. He came to us originally from Laos. He came here in 1976, actually, as part of the Hmong refugee program of folks that were impacted by the Vietnam War. He lives in Fresno and is another one of those folks that's really added a lot of value to our community and still serving the community in his new position. So with that, I wanted to turn it over to Mr. Xiong and let him talk about the kind of work he's doing, what he plans to do in his position going forward. So welcome.
No, thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. And I appreciate this opportunity to speak to the group, but more importantly, the incredible work that you have done and what the Maddy student is doing, trying to bring communities together. And it takes, that level of commitment because we're challenged in so many different ways. As you know, we're such a broad state with diverse perspective that it takes the folks that are able to reach out to different sides and bring them to the table. So I appreciate the incredible work that you've done. I've been fortunate to kind of work with you in the past as well, in different capacities. So I appreciate it for this opportunity. But just as you said, that just recently appointed, this would be probably my going on my 6th week into this new role. And that's as a SED or State Executive Director to FSA, great opportunity to continue to advocate for the Central Valley, but more importantly, have an opportunity now to engage at the state and federal level for what we think, at least what I think is important to California, because we are such an important agricultural state. We're extremely diverse. I mean, to even see how large the impact that we have. I think many of you already know that we're probably top 2, top 3 in terms of our production and gross revenues and the impact that we have not only in the state of California, but throughout the nation. But to actually get to see the different programs and different opportunities here with USDA, and just understand that FSA is just one of the umbrellas under the USDA. I think many of you might have already worked with NRCS to RMA to rural development. We're all out of FPAC. And just to let you know, for us here at FSA, Farm Service Agency, we're about 161 full-time employees, with 15 temporary employees, with 30 offices throughout California, serving all 58 counties. And so that's a pretty, a large state to cover with 30 offices, about 170 employees, and the amount of work and the incredible work. And what I found out is that our employees hasn't really grown, and it actually has reduced in numbers, but the work has grown. So the expectation of USDA and the amount of work that they require from our employees here has grown, and so it's putting a lot of pressure and work to make sure that we provide the level of safety net that we should be doing for all of our producer here in the state of California. With that, just some specific numbers in terms of what we've been doing, or FSA has been doing here in California. There's more than over $1 billion of federal programs that has reached California in 2021. A lot of those are safety net programs. Almost 753 of those $1 million, goes into some of our I call safety net programs, like our agricultural risk coverage, our loss price coverage, our dairy margin coverage programs. And then our ad hoc, we call it our coronavirus food assistance program. That's called the CFAP. So for us, it's extremely important and the incredible role that FSA provides to all of our producers during this critical time. With that, there's over $8 million, that have gone toward conserving and improving soil, water, and wildlife resources. We understand that the drought and fire continues to be a major factor for us here in California. So we have different programs for that. One of the things that I did within the first 2 weeks that our leadership team met was I actually had a meeting with our Secretary Ross and her team, and just trying to have a better idea what the state is doing, and so that we can better leverage how the state and federal can help each other out with the different programs instead of trying to compete. We're creating similar programs. I think the people want us to be able to have a better relationship and to continue to work together and make sure that we're trying to address the best that we can in regards to our drought and fire issues that we're facing. In addition to the programs that FSA does, the other big component is really the loans. We have two major loans, and part of our loan is our direct loan portfolio for this past cycle has been about $43 to $44 million, and guaranteed loan portfolio is about $56 million. So there's specific loan activities for those, but I mean, between the programs and the loan, those are the two biggest things that we do. Now there are details in terms of different programs, and that's why I brought both key leadership here locally, with Russ and Chantel, because they do those two here tremendously well. Work with them and staff and understanding the diverse need that we have here in the Central Valley. As you know, I mean, we're such a diverse group of growers here. You go from almonds to cattle to strawberries to row crops, just incredible, and different levels of capacity as well. And so one of the things that, with my 30 plus years of community engagement that I hope to add and continue to work with our leadership team is the type of community engagement that we want to make sure that we address folks maybe that traditionally has not been part of the system, that we call historically underserved communities, and make sure that we do the type of outreach engagement. But also, when we talk on the programming side, that programs are created in a way that address the needs of our California growers. That's important because sometimes, as I've said, I've been on the community side. We're looking at different programs. How does that impact us when it's coming from, whether state or federal level? I think there's sometimes we miss the point, and so I continue to be an advocate. I think in terms of how I work with our folks and our farmers, and this type of forum gives me that opportunity to continue to engage folks that work at the grassroots level. I think all of you impacted at somewhere. Now there are some large USDA type of programming or vision that our undersecretary and even our administration is pushing, and that's that has to do with climate change. And you've seen the $1 billion investments on the climate change programs that we're looking at. You're looking at our infrastructure issues that we're facing. Obviously, when I say that, we're not immune to what's happening internationally. We can look at the impact of the war to just been updated recently in regards to the coronavirus, the variant in China. That's going to have impact still as to what's going to happen to how we do trades or how we ship, our products across. So we have to pay attention to that. Obviously, USDA does more than just the work. We do the food nutrition, program as well across the nation. So these are kind of larger picture type of stuff. But, sometimes there are initiatives that come through. And one of those initiatives that we're looking at that was passed part of the 2018 Farm Bill is the urban ag. And that's that those programs are being looked at and being created and see how those are being brought forth. And I think urban ag is a new area to some of us that do a lot more with small farms, micro farms, and working with urban ag is nothing new to us, but maybe in terms of having federal programs that's coming down. So those I mean, that I think that's going to be important, how that program is being developed, is being looked at targetedly in terms of state to state. Obviously, there's a larger nationwide perspective, but how do we, engage and have those conversations at the federal level, and then making sure that when the program does reach California, that it looks at the urban ag issue specifically. And so there's some discussion, obviously, that's going to be moving forward. We've identified, two large cities that's going to be impacted in terms of this. It'll be a pilot, but it is part of the 2018 Farm Bill, and we'll see how that looks and gets rolled out in terms of to the two cities. I'm engaging folks already, partners, community partners, and having the discussion and looking to get into kind of this type of forum and talk with folks that are directly working with urban ags or urban ag growers within those regions, and have a better idea on the direct needs of what we're trying to do and how FSA and RCS or USDA play a role in helping and growing and sustaining urban ag as we move forward. But
Blong,
go ahead.
John, can I ask you a quick question? I
Sure.
am not that familiar with urban ag. Could you explain that in a little more detail?
Yeah, I mean, the urban ag is anything that is not having to do with small farm outside of the rural area. It's everything that's within I call it the city's core. We're talking about aquaponics, aeroponics. We're talking about community gardens. We're talking about those terrace types of farming. So anything that's there fits into that category. Again, it was a priority, it was part of the 2018. The last administration didn't really do much on that until this administration picked it up and wanted to really look at that because it was important enough to be part of the 2018 Farm Bill. And
is that more of an issue for, do you think, for like cities like maybe like Los Angeles or San Francisco, some of the bigger urban areas? Do you see that a lot in the Valley?
Well, I think we have. I mean, I worked here locally. Remember with Metro and with some of the folks that are dealing with urban ag, and we do have an urban ag community here in the city of Fresno. Okay. So I think you look at the northern, whether it's Oakland or San Francisco to LA, those are the things that we looked at. But we do have a robust urban ag here as well that could possibly be one of the key programs here in the Central Valley. And so I've been fortunate enough to, like I said, to be able to work with some of the folks to do that. But I think people, and not to say, Mark, I think we still have those that misunderstand sometimes when folks talk about small farms, they think it's urban ag, and it's not. They're two different animals. And so being able to engage those type, but really what type of programs that is going to be created that's coming down from the federal, especially on how FPAC or how NRCS, RMA, us, FSA are partnering and having those conversations. How do we support and sustain and grow? How
do you define like kind of these micro farms or small farms versus, is there some kind of criteria, number of acres or?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll ask, if Chantel or Russ wants to chime in too, but I know that for FSDA, we've defined small farms as 500 acres or less. But
it doesn't sound so small to me, but
no, it doesn't. But let me tell you my definition as I worked, and I've done the last couple of years with, when I say small farms for micro farms, right? For the majority of the work that I've done, especially with the 300 to 500 small farms that I work with, it's about 100 acres or less, but the majority, probably 90%, are 20 acres or less. And so the majority of the folks here are usually mom and dad, the mom and pop with children that are growing, that are incredible, that are putting 12 to 14 hours a day, that are doing all the incredible work and growing the type of row crops, the diversity that is here. I mean, one of our programs that we did before, like, as I've said, when we were helping those trying to survive through the pandemic, just one summer alone, through some of the ARPA dollars that came to the city of Fresno, just that summer, we helped, I think all the farmers that brought in, there was 101 different types of crops that came through that summer. And the majority of our folks would not probably are exposed to these type of crops, the variety, the quality that is grown here, let alone seeing these type of crops until this program was able to keep the product. We were able to help the farmers to buy the products, but able to distribute to the community here for communities that that do not have access to these type of quality goods or products for the community. And
I don't want to interrupt your presentation, but I've had some follow-up questions, if that's okay with you.
Please.
I mean, one of the things you're mentioning is getting the product to market. Are you involved at all with the supply chain issue with ag?
Not directly. I know that there's been discussion. Actually, talk with Peter Weber, right? That we're talking about some of the larger supply chain issue with trucks and stuff like that. And I know that even with the port that we've done with where the secretary and has moved to, I think, expand some of the port services, which is critical for us. Yeah, I mean, for what we've known, at least for us here when doing the work, and with me, with the impact of the pandemic, we know that the supply chain, or at least the infrastructure for ag, has been difficult.
How much of the infrastructure bill is going to be tied to ag? Do you get a clear indication of how much is going to be coming toward ag?
No, I haven't.
Infrastructure.
No, I haven't looked to the details of that. That's part of the team. But as you know, our bill, what they call the infrastructure bill, hopefully, I think it's passed with bipartisan support. And so there's some big dollars in terms of how that's going to be flushed out and being able to tie it to ag. But obviously we have our own infrastructure type of specific infrastructure issues that impact us, especially with the type of exporting that ag here in California does.
We were talking earlier about, it's who you know, right? And the federal government is obviously ginormous bureaucracy. But now we know who to talk to for ag issues.
Well, at least from a community perspective, and that's
right.
Important, right? For us.
But I assume you're probably gonna have to work with multiple agencies. Kind of depends on the issue, right? So if it's an immigration issue, you're gonna have to work with federal agencies. If it's a water issue, do you see a lot of interaction? A lot of interaction with these other agencies that have an impact on ag? And if not, are you working toward building better relationships with those agencies?
Well, I mean, my community worker says that I have to build relationship, whether it existed or not. And as I've said earlier, within that first 2 weeks, I've already reached out to folks that I work with at the state level through CDFA in regards to some of the small farms issue, drought issue. I reached out to our Forest Service already just to have a better understanding of that process. But talking with the leadership team, we were already looking at some of what the state drought program looks like and how we in the federal can create a supporting drought program as well, and identify some of the conservation programs that could look to address some of the land fallow issues. Reaching out to DWR. So I think at least for me, I'm used to working with partnership. I'm used to working, reaching across, whether you're state, local, or federal. Who are the partners out there that are doing similar things, having better lay of the land? And then how do we creatively work together to leverage the limited resources that we all have? We would think that FSA can do everything, but we don't. We're limited to certain what we do. But how do we work with our partner agency, whether it's NRCS, RMA, to deliver great services to all of our producers? But with that being said, how do we work with our other agency partners? But equally important, the market. It's about community engagement too, right? It's
Right.
about listening to folks. It's about working with all the different players that we have here in our ag producing state. Not only with the big growers, but all the small.
Think about ag policy. It is huge. It's labor, it's water, it's air quality. You probably have to talk with the air district about some things along those lines. There's a lot of different policy issues you're hitting on.
No, and we're a partner, and that's why I said, I think it's trying to get, for me, probably the most challenging. And when you and I had this discussion, it's not necessarily about programming. I've been doing programming for a long time, and it's about taking the programs and making sure it reaches out to folks that we think that should be reached out to, or making sure that it's available and accessible. But I think it's also because it is at the federal level, trying to understand who the connector points are, how does communication work, what type of policy are we looking at. I think it's just trying to have a better lay of the land at the federal level, so that I can better impact and better advocate for us as a state. And then that leads into my two priority as I work with our leadership team, locally here with Russ and with Chantel. It's about what can I do here to make sure I support our staff. They do a tremendous amount of work. You just saw some of the things that I showed you, the incredible work that they do, with reduced staff and expecting more work out of them. So what can I do to support that? What kind of additional resources? I would tell you, coming in, as the new SCD, I'm already faced with an HR issue where I'm losing 13 senior staff out of retirement. I think I'm the only SCD that is dealing with 13 senior staff that's possibly looking at retirement within that first year. And that's institutional knowledge that is critical. So I have to look at succession planning. What does that look like? That's not including the challenges of frontline folks that are meeting our producers, meeting our customers, and talking with them, and making sure that our offices, that our staffing are up to date, that they're getting the type of resources that they need so that they can better serve us as producers, us as constituents.
One of the things you're mentioning there is, you do have if you look on your website, a myriad of programs.
Right.
It would take you quite a long time just to figure out what you guys have. And then the question is getting that information out to the right people.
Right.
That's a Herculean task in and of itself.
No, that's why it's critical, right? When we have partners with not only all the big names and association, whether it be the Almond Alliance to the Grape Alliance, the wines and the folks, but it's how do we engage, to folks in organizations and nonprofits that do work with smaller producers.
Mhm.
I think it's that type of hopefully holistic type of approach, but engagement. And I commend my directors and local directors here, and that's why they're doing this work, and they're reaching out folks, they're talking to folks, so that they have better contact in terms of who are the folks that we're reaching out. I think whether the activities that we're doing sufficient, or what other partners are we bringing into the fold, so that we can really meet the initiative of what the administration and what our undersecretary is trying to do is to reach all of our producers. And remember, folks, I mean, the USDA department has been named the People's Department, right? It's not just a certain section; it's the People's Department, and that's making sure that we do our best to reach to all Americans here that are producers in this state and throughout the nation.
Are there major initiatives that since you've been there? Maybe you can't answer this question because you've only been there for a short period of time at this point, but are there, maybe Chantel can answer the question, are there major initiatives that your agency is really pushing these days?
Well, maybe Chantel can answer about a large picture. I think when you see we still have the coronavirus programming,
Right.
that's still dollars out there. Just recently, you look at the freeze that we had, and not necessarily down here, but more impact up north with our almond growers. That was devastatingly impacted. So working with them and look at the existing programs, but how do we create and support those? And then also being able to work with them, if we needed to get those into emergency designation, that does open more opportunities and initiative, right? And making sure that our folks are filing their stuff on a timely manner, because they are based upon time. Some of the insurance program that we have, loss programs that we have. I know that our staff has done a tremendous amount of work reaching out to folks, just reminding folks, hey, timeframes, initiatives that are coming and gone. So we'll make sure that we stay to that. Chantel, I don't know if Russ is in, but anything else to add on that?
No, the main focus right now is really getting the word back out, meaning that our doors are open to the public and welcoming them back in, and definitely focusing on our underserved customers as well.
It seems like you have, just listening to what you guys are saying, it seems like it's really hard for you guys to be proactive because you're constantly reacting to the coronavirus and then the drought that we're having, and maybe there's going to be wildfires. I mean, you're always trying to provide these emergency services, and it seems like in one way that's a big part of your job.
No, it is, and that's why FSA plays such a huge role, USDA, in terms of the safety net for all of our producers, right? And then and it's critical how we do that. But for us to to be more impactful is how we engage our producers at different levels. And just as Chantel is saying, part of the uncertainty still, although the numbers looks good and we're having moving towards full opening. I mean, for us here, as she said, we're open still, but in Kings County, it's still not. And so it's still different regions and different, so that affects the level of services that we're able to provide, and the impact that it has for producers that may need additional service, whether that's language service or technology access. Those take time, those takes effort.
Are you worried at all? I mean, the drought, it's amazing. We had great rain in December. Everybody's thinking, wow, this is going to be a good year, and then nothing basically. And I'll tell you, I'm not a farmer. I try to be, but I'm not a farmer. I'm looking, there's no water coming out of the sky. I mean, are you looking at that thinking, we are going to be coming up on a very serious situation this year. I mean, we're coming toward the end of the rainy season. Are you looking at, we're going to have more, loans available, emergency loans or safety net programs available for folks who are really going to be impacted by this?
No, and those are discussions that's already been had. I mean, even before I was on coming in, those are discussions that the USDA is already having. They've already talked with some of the state, and we get briefing from the state in terms of the drought situation, in terms of the federal situation. There are dollars looking at how do we mitigate and where we're looking at. And so, yeah, those issues has already been looked at, and where we're going to see how we can best serve. And I'm just continuing some of those conversations with federal dollars. Where can we best serve, and how do we engage that at the federal level? And for us here as a state, it's the drought, right? The water issue,
Yeah.
the fire issue. And
if it gets really bad, like people are thinking it might become, is there a possibility that you can go back and get emergency funding to help some of the farmers that are really impacted?
Well, that's going to be one of my efforts, right? As a representative of California, and how we do that, to make sure that I'm engaging with our team, and our team's looking at everything, and then making sure that we have the right information, support, working collaboratively with our state agency to make sure that we're on the same page. Even though I represent our administration and our undersecretary, I still have to advocate and make our case as well. To make sure that when it does happen, that we have the necessary support and the right type of dollars. I still engage with our congressional representative as well, as they ask me for update as to what's been going on, and so I provide them as much information as I can.
Okay. One of the things, I don't know if you want to make any more points, but I want to also let the folks know that you can ask your questions. You can put them in the chat, and we can ask them if you have any questions. Be happy to pass them along.
I mean, part of this is kind of our open dialogue as well, so I'm looking forward. I do see some faces, some names out there that I know I have worked with.
So I don't see anybody in chat right now. So let me see. So you're, if I was someone trying to find out more information about the kind of services you provide, what the answer is, go to the website?
Well, websites obviously for those that have access, right?
Okay.
To the portals or to technology and things like that. And we work with different folks that are cooperative partners as well.
You said you have 30 offices in the state. That's a lot of offices, frankly. Are they staffed, or because of COVID, they're doing it?
No, they're staffed. Well, prior to COVID, before when the pandemic was happening, I think everybody's working out, right, for safety and protocol reasons. So now, as I've said earlier, I think all of our staff are open now. I think the only one that, and Chantal just updated, that's King is the only one that's gone back to still being closed, but we're open, and so we're trying to, I think the projection is that maybe by June that it'd be back to somewhat normal. Now this is based upon the trend and everything, right? So we can see all this wonderful trend going positive, and then suddenly it can take a step back too. Then that impacts all that stuff. And then we looked at not only the cases that are tracked, but also folks that are in the emergency room as well, to also determine some of those. And so it's how obviously we believe, or part of the administration, make sure that we practice health and safety protocol and encourage those that that they get their vaccination to help mitigate it. But we understand everybody's making their decision as well.
I was thinking of the staffing issues you've got. You got to staff up those 30 offices. You've lost 13 senior staff.
That's projection for the year.
but you lose that. That's a lot of institutional knowledge.
I totally agree with you, and then that's a serious discussion that I'm having with leadership in Washington. How do I look to mitigate that? And how do I feel those spaces within the time frame that as they're moving, because it's not as though you're working for yourself. You say, no, this person's gone, I'm going to hire that person within the next 30 days or within the next week, right? It takes a process.
Have you had a chance at this point, it's early on in your position, you had a chance to interact with other state directors?
I have.
If so, do you see any common issues that the leaders some of the leaders are dealing with nationwide?
We have. Actually, we just had a regional, we call it regional meeting with some of our state executive director, our appointees. I think there were at least 5 of us on that. I think it was Arizona, Kansas, Colorado. There was another one that was there. We talked, and obviously some of those are even newer appointees than I am. So that's even more challenging as well, as we're looking through, and some of the HR is across the board. So that's all of us in terms of HR. So that's across the board. How do we deal with it? Because the environment has become more competitive as well, right? I mean, we know that fast food now are offering $16, $17, $18 an hour. And so you're competing against that. And obviously, for public institutions or service agencies like us, and I worked in a nonprofit for a long time, it's hard to compete against private industry, right? You take a person in, train them, you spend 6-7 months, get them going, they build the necessary skill set, and they get out there, do a great job, and then private partners say, hey, we'll pay you twice as much with better benefits. It's hard to keep them as well.
Yes, I've had that happen myself.
Yeah, so you gotta understand that as well as you're working folks who coming in, and you're hoping that part of it is that you are competitive, but part of it is the drive is the passion to serve our community. And working, in this capacity allows you to do that, and hopefully we create an environment that is positive, but allows a person to grow and fulfill their personal objective as well.
Yeah, it's super important. I mean, you're dealing with the most important industry in the region. We got a question from Jocelyn. Let me read it to you. It says, what are some challenges you face that aren't dealing with the pandemic?
Well,
the pandemic has kind of covered everything, it seems like, but what else?
Well, I think the pandemic is everything, but even prior to the pandemic, and as I've said, working on the community, I think part of it is making sure that folks really understand, what USDA is, FSA, and the incredible programs out there. Because as you said, we have a variety of different programs that really help the community, help the producers, and it's making sure that all of our community are part of that process. How do we engage in folks that maybe historically hasn't been part of the system, and how do we make sure that the system work and protects them, and also provides the type of necessary, I think, and yet still create the relationship and the mechanism to support our more traditional growers, right? They're the ones that we serve and protect as well. And
well,
so
it seems like a huge part of your job is outreach and getting folks to know about your programs, but you have the additional challenge that someone who gets my age who gets information, we get our information one way, kind of don't want to say Pony Express, but we get our information kind of a more TV, radio. Younger generation, it's all about social media, and so that you have to be able to really be agile and be able to get the information out on different platforms to reach the different audiences you're trying to reach.
And I think that's a benefit of having an opportunity to work in the community for so long, right? For being able to work with so many different partners and be able to understand the different type of outreach tools that are available. That is not just where people, what's the best one? Well, there's really not a best one. There's really, if you utilize multiple sources, multiple tools, then you have a better chance of reaching folks, in terms of programming. And that's what you have to be creative about, is how do we look at the different types of communication tools. And that includes partnerships, community partnership, that includes grassroots partnership, that includes public agency as well, to help get some of the message, to help get some of the story out and services out that FSA does. And that's in addition to the social media, the mainstream things, and continue, like you said, that the relationships and the outreach side that every SED should be doing.
Now you have all these different programs, but you're in the federal budget. So the federal budget ends September 30th, I think.
Right.
Do you have? Are these programs? Do they all have kind of like the same deadlines? Do they have like rolling deadlines? Does it depend on the program? So if someone's interested in a program, they say, "Oh boy, by March 1st, I have to apply, or I'm not going to be able to be in this program for the rest of the fiscal year." Is there?
Yeah, there are deadlines
there are
deadlines to the programs. There are, and Chantel can speak a little bit more to some of the deadlines that we have, and I think Russ can too. Even some of the programs that we have, right? Just like our coronavirus emergency program. At some point, that's going to go away, right? Even some of the immediate emergency programs that's created. At some point, that emergency program is going to go away. Now we have programs that are part of the programs that we have that are institutionalized. Those are some of our conservation programs, some of our risk management programs in terms of the NAP programs that we have. And so those will stay. But, part of that, we're based upon the Farm Bill too. And you've heard the deadlock and the continuation farm bill. I think it just got done, but it's all impacted by what happens at the federal. But whether they decide or not, we still continue to provide the services.
But if you're someone that's interested in this and seeing what you guys have, it's imperative that they reach out to you guys and look at the program, see what the deadlines are, apply. And I assume you would, if I'm someone who kind of sees the program, thinks it might relate to the work I'm doing or the needs I have, I then talk to your staff, and your staff then works with me to put together a grant proposal or a
Right.
loan application, what have you, to address the problem that I'm dealing with.
Right. I would encourage you to talk with them. I wouldn't exclude yourself out, first. I mean, whether you believe it, whether you think it close enough, I think it's a, hey, can I talk to you about this? And see that conversation with these, because just because maybe we're not able to directly through FSA provide that service, but we also have other agencies that we work with, that could be part of NRCS, that could be part of RMA, that could be part of our other agencies through our network that we can connect our producers with. And so don't exclude yourself.
Yeah, your point is a really good one. I mean, you're a clearinghouse, because it's not just your programs. It's it could be state programs that you're aware of. Say, well, this program may not fit you, but this one will. And that's incredibly helpful information to folks who are trying to, access these programs, because there really are so many of them out there. A lot of them go wanting because people just aren't aware of them.
Right. Well, sometimes it's just challenging to access the program, right?
Yeah.
It's not,
Yes.
And I've seen that, to finally get to a person that you can talk with and just having those conversations. And I think the pandemic has shown that that's tough. I mean, many of our producers, again, especially when you come to smaller producers, language becomes an issue, right? Technology becomes an issue. And so in the past, what they're used to is talking to somebody one-on-one. And that has been put, in a difficult challenge. So for our staff to be creative, and how do we engage? How do we still provide support for those and still reach out to additional ones during this?
And that becomes a real issue, because we know that there's a digital divide in the Valley.
Right.
That not particularly in the smaller communities they don't have access as easy as maybe some of the people in the urban areas. So that becomes a real challenge.
Right.
Let me ask you this. You took this position again. Bless you for doing more service. But how you walk this, two questions. One is, what really attracted you to this position? I know it's probably hard to say no to the president, but besides that, the second thing is, how would you view your success over time in this position? I mean, what are the metrics that you're going to use for yourself? Say, hey, you know what, this was I did a good job because I did X, Y, or Z.
Right. Well, the position itself, I mean, it's just a continuation that what I think I've always done is serve the community. Whether it's at the nonprofit level to city council level, back out to the nonprofit, it's just a different level. I've always been an advocate in terms of the folks that I represent, but in terms of the area, in terms of the city, in terms of the region. So this gives me an opportunity to really engage, in terms of what's important, and what I think is important for us right now in terms of ag, and how that affects our community, our state, and especially here in the Valley. So I think that's the opportunity to engage at the federal level, learn and grow, but making sure that hopefully having our voices being heard. That's part of it. Success for me, just trying to keep it simple. Am I impacting folks' lives? Am I affecting the producer here? What type of services are we doing? Are we reaching? Giving opportunities to producers that maybe traditionally have not had to access this, and what type of folks that are part of this conversation. And so I hate to like 5-year, 10-year plan, but I think when I have a chance is was I a part of the team that helped a producer get connected, that helped them get this loan, that helped them get this grant, that helped them get this, because at the end of the day, that's what's important. Right? Did the producers get what they need, and how are they able to take that advantage of that and really help our community? And so I try to keep my success level small, and hope, and if it's able to demonstrate that that's part of what we do on a larger scale, then that's great. But to me, it's being able to really identify folks that we impact, that we affect, that we're able to see the change in their life and what they're able to do. That to me is success.
Yeah, it's just knowing how to make those connect, which you've obviously been in the community for a long time, but it's knowing how to make those connections. It's interesting. I was part of an Irvine group one time, and they had a networking model, and they said, okay, here's your network. And all the people that I know, and I realized that my network was way out here, and all the other people in the other groups were way over here. In other words, there wasn't an interaction between the people that I deal with and the people, that these other folks in this leadership group dealt with. We weren't even, and so the question was, how do we connect those two dots? So there's some cross fertilization, so people can kind of talk and learn more from each other. It's interesting. We do get we don't realize it, but we do get isolated in our own little worlds, and we don't interact with other folks, even in our own communities.
Well, that's why this forum is important. To have folks to interact and to be able to engage and to look at the different partnerships that could be happening, all right, outside of what they do, and maybe connect them to different folks. Network is capacity is such a incredible tool for individual, and I will tell you, it has helped me. There's no way that I would be able to do anything that I would even come close without all the different folks that I've encountered that have played an incredible role in helping me grow as a person, helping me grow in terms of my skill set, helping me grow in terms of the knowledge that I need to be able to at least do the things that I can. So it's important to have those network and be able to
even in this digital age, personal relationships are still the most important.
Well, maybe I'm old school that way, Mark. I'm old school like you.
So I proudly say I'm a boomer in that regard. I have a question here about person says, well, what are some of the impacts higher energy costs are having on ag, and how can the USDA help alleviate those costs? Interesting question. You're seeing now the increase in gas prices.
It affects, right? Transportation affects costs.
Yeah.
I mean, bottom line, you look at all the things that's happening now in terms of what can USDA do to do that. I mean, that's really going to be an administration at international level on those things that are happening, because those things that are happening outside of
because of the war, for example, to
right.
the extent that you lose the Russian natural gas and oil, whatever,
Right.
and it impacts the market, and that
Right.
drives up the price. I'm assuming the administration is probably thinking, well, maybe we have to do things to
Right.
alleviate some of those cost pressures on farmers.
Yeah, and that's making sure that us as appointees are having the close connection with our producers here, hearing those type of issues, and engaging our undersecretary to make sure that he's part of that conversation with the administration. But again, also, I mean, we talk about the transportation infrastructure issues, and we go back to our exporting and things like that. Not only is the war happening, but also the impact of some of those health issues, whether it's in China or some of those places that we go to. I mean, that affects directly in terms of what's happening to our producers here and costs and everything. And then obviously you have to look at competition as well.
Yeah, I'm just thinking as you're talking, as we talked earlier, just how broad your plate is. And just thinking about, for example, the ports in Long Beach.
Right.
And that relates to you
Right.
because of ag products going out.
Mhm.
There's lots on your plate. I want to make sure that you say whatever you think you want to say to the group here, and then let you go and get some lunch. So you can actually have a 15-minute lunch today, or 10-minute lunch. But is there anything else you want to share with the group you think is important?
Yeah, obviously I appreciate this opportunity to meet with the group, but to see some friendly names out there. But to me, it's about making sure that I'm accessible to the group. But also more importantly, I think having these type of partnerships makes me hopefully more proactive in terms of the discussion that I need to have, but also be grounded, continue to keep me grounded in terms of the type of work that I have to do to represent not only our area, but in the state as well. And I think having these type of conversations, having folks being able to be able to call and talk with me. And I think at the end of the day, it's about us building our relationship and network and be able to help move our community and our region forward. And I appreciate this platform. Started off with that.
What's great about this too, I just will end with this, is we hear a lot of times about the Valley is overlooked in appointments at the state level and maybe the federal level. It is great to know that in the most important industry in the area, we've got someone one of our very own, who's taking a leadership position. So That's great. So everybody knows now who they can contact. The federal government have any
Thanks,
ag
Mark.
issues whatsoever. Here's your guy.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate that. No, please, I do it. And, you know, it's nothing has changed. As I've told folks, like my cell phone has not changed a bit. And I'll be more happy to give you my work cell phone. You know, Chantel's on there as well. She'll give, but I would encourage you folks, please call our office. Our team does a tremendous amount of work.
And I'll just reiterate, it is extremely helpful when you have someone like Blong Xiong in a position like this, because you can pick up the phone, and I'll tell you, even if he doesn't have the answer, he knows who does. He will connect you with that person, and then you're off to the races. And that's 99% of the battle right there. So we're delighted to have you in the position. We're delighted you took the time to kind of let us know what you're doing, and to let everybody know that from now on, if there's an ag issue, you're the first guy you go to. Pick up the phone.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate this. Please, let's continue to work together and work hard for our community and our valley here. And I promise I continue to champion for our cause here in the valley, but equally important also for our state with this opportunity. And thank you for all the incredible work that every one of you guys are doing, you know, here in the valley and trying to make our valley and our state better. And that's all we can do is contribute and work.
And by the way, I'd be remiss, I should have said this at the very top. Congratulations. That is quite an honor to be nominated by the president to take a position. And so we're very proud of you. So congratulations. And thanks for being with us today.
No, thank you. Appreciate Chantel and Russ for being here with me. I know that they're busy schedules serving constituents. Thank you very much, folks. Have a great day. Enjoy your lunch.
Yep. Bye.